VSiN Weekend Morning Line on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Hour number 2 of the VSiN Weekend Morning Line. I'm Tim Murray, live from the Circus Sportsbook in downtown Las Vegas, Nevada. What a night it was last night, as boy, the revenge was out there to be had, as all teams on the ice and on the hardwood that were down 0-2 and at home took care of business. And if you want to throw in the Minnesota Timberwolves, who were tied 1 game apiece with the Los Angeles Lakers, but at home for the first time in that first round series, they won as well. All 6 teams took care of business at home last night, whether on the ice or on the hardwood. And we've now got 4 games in the NBA playoffs today, 4 games on the ice today. In this hour, Jonathan Von Tobel, in less than 15 minutes, he'll help us break down the 4 NBA playoff games. Jonathan Davis, our insider for the NHL, he will help us break down the 4 games on the ice. And of course, we are 1 hour away from the start of the 4th round of the NFL draft. When will the slide stop for Shedeur Sanders? And I thought Albert Breer of SI had an interesting take here just a moment ago, which was, is it a slide or is it just now a situation where you're drafting for depth at this point? You are not anticipating a 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th round player to be a star. Maybe they will be, and you're happy about that. Of course, you think to Tom Brady being the most famous story 25 years ago. But you need someone like Shedeur Sanders, who obviously, as I look on ESPN or NFL Network, that's the lead talk right now. You need him to accept the reality at this point that he's going to be a backup or maybe 3rd-string quarterback. He's going to be a developmental project. And as we talked to Mike Sanford in the first hour of the show, you're going to need to have a coach that is comfortable with that, knowing there's going to be a lot of media wanting to talk to Shedeur Sanders. I still think Pittsburgh makes a lot of sense for him, and I'll go back to this, and we'll talk more about this in the 3rd hour of the show. At 83, could Pittsburgh have taken him? Sure. I thought it was possible at 21. Look, I had a mock draft on VSiN.com, and I had Shedeur Sanders going 21 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers did not have a 2nd-round pick, which they traded away for DK Metcalf, they lost Najee Harris, and Caleb Johnson from Iowa was sitting there at 83, Dane Brugler's 3rd best running back. I don't fault them for taking a guy that seems to be a plug-and-play starter, knowing that the fall was happening here. And now you look around at the reality of the situation. Cleveland, whether you agree with it or not, went with Dylan Gabriel. The Seattle Seahawks, ironically enough, with the pick that they acquired from the trade of Geno Smith to the Las Vegas Raiders, went with Jalen Milroe. A very much developmental project, but I actually really like that situation there in Seattle, because it does feel like you would imagine there will be packages this year for the most explosive running quarterback in this draft class in Jalen Milroe. Tyler Shuck, how about this? I believe he's older than 12 quarterbacks in the NFL. Awesome dog, by the way. Good job, Tyler Shuck. Dogs are the best. He goes to the New Orleans Saints. I have 2 bets in pocket, so am I a little blinded by those bets? Yes. But I still think, and maybe the Raiders one doesn't make as much sense after they passed on him at 98 and 99 last night, but I still think the Raiders or the Steelers are the 2 best, most likely landing spots. And if you look at the odds that are out there, FanDuel plus 190, Pittsburgh Steelers, DraftKings plus 190, Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that's right. But once again, at this point, you're just throwing a dart. But Pittsburgh's only had 2 picks. They have not been a team that's passed on him a lot. At 21, it seemed like you had to make the move. You need a guy who's going to be instant impact, even though their quarterback situation seems to be in disarray. Is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? Is it going to be someone via a trade? But later on in this 4th round, I think pick 123. Now, with Mike Tomlin, feel like he's kind of the perfect coach. Does he say enough is enough? We're going to take Shedeur Sanders. Or does he go before then? We'll see. Draft reconvenes coming up at the top of the next hour. But I wanted to run through here because obviously a lot of the talk today is going to be about Shedeur and when he's ultimately going to land, and I get it. But I did want to run through just some of my favorite hauls that we've seen so far. And we talked to Mark Malusis just a moment ago. Look, I like what the Giants have done so far. Abdul Carter at 3, trade back in to get Jackson Dart. The defensive tackle out of Toledo with the first pick of the 3rd round, I thought was a nice selection too. But I'll run through just a couple of the group of players that I really liked that were acquired by teams. Mike Palm, I was doing a hit with him on his radio show in Chicago, and he asked me, is there any moves, and this was prior to the 2nd round coming around, he said, is there any moves or draft selections that we've seen that maybe change your perception and look at a win total? And I think these 5 particular teams get me a little bit intrigued, get me a little excited. And it'll be alphabetical order. It's not in order of, I think this team was 1, this team was 2. And I want to start with the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals, a team that JVT, who we'll talk to here in less than 10 minutes, thought, hey, maybe this is a team that takes the next step this upcoming year. That was a year ago. When I look at Arizona, and I look at the pieces that they've put together on that offense, last year going out and getting Marvin Harrison, Kyler Murray staying healthy, love Trey McBride, their tight end, and now I look at what they did defensively in this draft, and I thought, man, I really like what this Arizona Cardinals team put together here. So Arizona, in the 1st round with the 16th overall pick, took Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. And he was a guy that was a late riser in the process, but based off of pure talent, probably should have been a top 10 pick. But there were questions about motivation and lack of production when he went to Ole Miss. But if he can hit at the level that his talent says he can, I think he's a plug-and-play, very productive starter for Arizona. And then what about the pick in the 2nd round? 47th overall, they grabbed Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan. And, personally for me, from a betting standpoint, I was very happy to see the fall for Will Johnson because he was a player that his over-under at Circa opened 13.5. It got blasted up to the over, and he ultimately goes in the 2nd round. And I had a bet in a matchup with Jahdae Barron versus Will Johnson that ultimately came home. But at 47 for a guy in Will Johnson, damn, that is quite the spot to grab him. And how about this? He told this to the media falling to 47. He said, I'm frustrated because I know I'm healthy. And that was the question about the knee injury for Will Johnson. At 47, 1,000,000% worth the risk there. You could have just gotten the best defensive back in this draft class at 47. Now, you're banking on a risk, but at 47, I think absolutely it was worth it for the Arizona Cardinals. And then lastly, you get Jordan Birch, a really solid edge rusher out of Oregon. 3 picks in the first 3 rounds for Arizona. I think all 3, barring health, should be instant impact players. The Baltimore Ravens, of course, they just do what they always do. And they went out with the 27th overall pick and said, hey, we'll go grab the best safety in the draft. They get Malachi Starks, a little bit undersized, hell of a productive player. And then you talk about risks. You got to take risks, right, at times. And if you're the Baltimore Ravens, a team that in many people's eyes from a power rating standpoint might have been the best team in the NFL last year. There were a good number of weeks last year where odds makers and sharp bettors would tell you their highest power rated team, Baltimore. Did they get to the Super Bowl? Obviously they did not. But you go out and you get Mike Green, the edge rusher from Marshall. There are off-field concerns, allegations with sexual assault. They have not been founded. But with the 59th overall pick, if none of those things come to fruition, and as of right now they have not, I'm just looking at it from a pure talent standpoint, the Baltimore Ravens got a first-round talent with the 59th overall pick and a guy that could potentially be an instant impact edge rusher there. So you got Malachi Starks, who will pair up with Kyle Hamilton in the back end of that secondary, and now you've got an edge rusher in Mike Green. Seems like a pretty darn good haul there for Baltimore. How about what Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears are doing for Caleb Williams? You got no more excuses, Caleb Williams. I'm still in on Caleb Williams. I'm not ready to sell any stock on Caleb Williams. And they go out with the 10th overall pick. You could argue whether or not they should have taken Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland. Regardless, they got one of the best 2 tight ends in this draft class. They go out and they get Colston Loveland. And then how about in the second round, they get Luther Burden, an ultra-productive stud out of Missouri. And now you look at the weapons that Caleb Williams has to work with there in Chicago, and you're looking at DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, a backfield of Roshan Johnson and DeAndre Swift. Ben Johnson has got his cupboard absolutely full of toys for his first head coaching job. And then lastly, I'll just hit on this before we hit a break. I really like what Mike Vrabel's building in New England. It's early. They're going to take their lumps, but Drake May looks like he's going to be a dude. You go out, you get your left tackle and Will Campbell. You get Travion Henderson. I was surprised to see Quinshon Judkins go ahead of Travion Henderson. And then, speaking of ultra productive, in the 3rd round, you get wide receiver Kyle Williams out of Washington State. I really do like what New England has done so far in the draft. Draft restarts coming up at the top of the hour. 4 NBA playoff games. Jonathan Von Tobel is going to help us break those down for you next, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You're tuned in to the VSiN Weekend Morning Line.
We keep it rolling here on a busy Saturday in late April. Got 4 NBA playoff games, 4 hockey games, and the NFL draft back at it coming up top of the hour. Where will Shedeur Sanders land? What about Cam Scatterboot, the running back out of Arizona State? Over-under is 120.5. You took the under or the over. You're sweating that out, so we'll keep eyes on that. But let's head back to our progressive guest line and welcome in the new co-host of Money Moves with Stormy Bonatoni, our guy, JVT. We're going to miss you on VSiN Primetime, brother, but congratulations to you, fired up for the new program. But let's jump into a situation I know you were talking about with Matt last night, which you and I kind of laugh at a lot of things that just get blown out of proportion. Milwaukee, Indiana. So ultimately, the Bucks do get the win and the cover last night, right? 117-101. Gary Trent Jr. goes absolutely nuclear. He and Giannis combined for 74 points. But walk us through what the first half number was last night with Milwaukee and Indiana and what the full game number was, because this trend is a bit outrageous.
Yeah, so the popular trend and the popular theory is a team down 2-0 going back home is live in the first quarter in the first half. Those that will use the trend and throw it out will cite it back to 2013, and it's very true. Going back to 2013, it was a very popular trend. It was great, but it has not been the case. The market is totally baked in everything that you're talking about when it comes to this. So yesterday, the Indiana Pacers closed as 5-point underdogs in the first half. You saw this against the Milwaukee Bucks. And then, of course, what happens? They're 4.5-point underdogs for the game. So think about that. You're catching 5 in the first half for a pre-flop number for the full game that is 4.5. It is absolute insanity when you're talking about this number. So, and they cover with ease. They won outright the first half by 10 points. Now, they got smoked in the second half. They didn't cover the game. But you see that. So I think it's ridiculous. You see some of these trends and what's going to happen here. I find it wild. Now, we're going to wait until the next round to see our next batch of 0-2 games or 0-2 series if we get it. But that was insane yesterday. You didn't have to sweat it out. And we should note, Orlando Magic, a team down 2-0. They ended up winning the first quarter. They did not cover in the first half. And some of those discrepancies as well, Tim. In a game in which they were catching 5.5 for a contest, Magic were actually half-point favorites in the first quarter, and they were 1-point underdogs in the first half in a game in which they were 5.5-point, 6-point underdogs for the full contest. So it is wild what you're getting with some of these numbers, and it very much benefits you to fade the team that is down 2-0 going back home in the first quarter of the first half, given the value you're getting on the numbers.
All right, we have 4 games today, which we have to get into. But just looking back at last night, we get the Bucks win. Gary Trent goes nuts. Giannis is awesome again. The Magic get the win against a banged-up Celtics team, even though Jason Tatum, I thought, played really well last night. And then the T-Wolves outscore the Lakers 13-1 in the final 4.5 minutes to get that win. Any overall big takeaways from what we saw last night for you, JVT?
I don't think it was anything crazy yesterday. I think one of the things that really does stick out over these last few games in this Timberwolves and Lakers series, I want to get the exact numbers for you here. But I mentioned this when we were talking about it yesterday on Primetime, which was, look, the Lakers through 3 games now, they have really struggled against this Timberwolves defense. Last night, an offensive rating of 108.3, Tim. They're averaging under 1.1 points per possession in this series so far. They have not had an answer for this Minnesota Timberwolves defense, and with some frequency. And again, too, yesterday, just a so-so day within 4 feet of the basket. Really nothing within 4 to 14 feet. They went 4 of 15 from 4 to 14 feet. So again, in that kind of floater restricted area, paint area, they weren't really getting it done. That to me has been the constant throughout this series. Look, Timberwolves shooting and all that, it's been kind of up or down. But what has been constant has been the fact that the Lakers cannot score inside against this Timberwolves defense. And that is going to, I think, continue and ultimately be the reason why they lose this series.
JVT joining us here. You can follow him on Twitter at @MeJVT, of course. Money Moves, he and Stormy start Monday, right, JVT?
Yes, we start on Monday. Very much looking forward to it.
Yes, sir. So check that out. The new program, or not new program, new and improved. How about that? The way to look at it. All right, 4 games today. Let's start with your hat. The Clippers and the Nuggets. Thursday night for you, I'm sure, was just lovely. Tyler Warren goes to your Indianapolis Colts, and then the Clippers go out and absolutely obliterate the Denver Nuggets. What do you make of this number tonight? 6.5 in favor of the Clippers. Total around 212.5. What are you anticipating? Do we see a better effort from the Denver Nuggets this evening at the Intuit Dome?
First, we should note it would have been nice, a nice night to watch the Clippers had you been able to watch it. How about that? It was blacked out. Now, I am subscribed.
Come down to Circa, baby. Come on.
I mean, now I am unlike some who wanted to watch it. I am subscribed to Clipper Vision because, I'm a Clippers fan, so you can watch games regardless of blackout status. And, it's a subscription service, whatever. My wife got it for me. That's not the point, right? The point is that it's a playoff game that could have been blacked out for many people, both that wanted to watch it here or in Denver, which is absolute insanity. So let's get that out of the way. The NBA, you're morons. You got to fix that system. Having said that, I laid this in our contest here up on the website at VSiN.com. I laid a little bit in an actual bet of 5.5. We're up to 6.5 now. I would say if you feel like me and you think that this series might be coasting toward the done scenario, just sit back and wait because we do have some injuries that are going to affect what this line is. We can get this back down to 5.5. Michael Porter Jr., Russell Westbrook, both questionable to play. Shoulder for Porter, foot for Russell Westbrook. But either way, Tim, I just think that this is a series in which the Nuggets don't really have any answers for what the Clippers boast. You're talking about James Harden. They don't really have an answer for him defensively. Aaron Gordon's doing okay against Kawhi Leonard, but he's been absolutely brilliant. The depth of the Clippers is starting to shine through. Nick Batum has been very, very good. Derrick Jones Jr. has given them some good minutes. Even Ben Simmons running the point for them when James Harden's not out there has been okay. I just think that this is a series where there's so many different things that work in the Clippers' favor. I mean, look at what Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic did together on Thursday, and they lost the way that they did. I think that this is just a series in which there's too many things that work against the Nuggets. I think they go back to Denver up 3-1. I think they can cover this. And by the way, we should note that they are a Russell Westbrook corner 3 away from coming into this game up 3-0 in the series. I think this has been a tough matchup for Denver, and I think they lose this one tonight. They don't cover. Yeah,
I'm very much no offense, but I'm very much looking to watching Money Moves as we've talked about it on Primetime. It's happening at some point, right? Your terrible luck with this Clippers organization. I don't know what it's going to be, but damn, they look good right now, man. That series, if we get it, and assuming we will, OKC and Clippers, that is going to be an absolute war.
I can't wait to watch Kawhi Leonard play like one game and then not play the rest of that series. They'll go up 1-0 over the Thunder. They will. Yeah. They'll go up 1-0 over the Thunder, and then Kawhi won't play the rest of the series. I mean, I'm very much waiting for it. At least Mike Trout hit his league-leading homer last night. He's hitting like 188, but I think he's got 9 homers, and I've got my 66-1 ticket that is live. So let's go.
All right, let's get to the nightcap tonight, which is Houston and Golden State. Are we expecting Jimmy Butler? What do you expect? I mean, My gut is telling me, I know he's listed as questionable. I don't think he plays tonight. They're still a 3-point favorite. Houston gets game 2. So, is this from a betting standpoint, kind of what we saw with Minnesota last night, where they go off as a favorite? What do you make of Houston and Golden State tonight out at the Chase Center with the uncertainty of Jimmy Butler?
Yeah, it seems pretty serious. So I don't think Jimmy Butler's going to play. And I think this number is somewhat factoring that in. Remember, it was only a 1.5-point spread in favor of Houston in game 1. The market obviously was very heavy on the bounce back in game 2, a little too heavy, even after the result, because again, Jimmy Butler got hurt. Brandon Pajemski was ill. So in this one, I don't really expect Butler to play, but I think the market is factoring this in. We're up to 205.5. The total's been bet up there despite the questions about Butler playing. I think that this is going to be one where the Warriors are going to be able to bounce back relatively nicely. Look, Pajemski's not going to be sick. You would assume he's going to give you something here. And even without Butler, you're back at home. Role players tend to play a little bit better. Guys like Buddy Hield, Moses Moody, and others with familiar shooting backgrounds should be able to shoot relatively well. And Houston, they hurt. I mean, look, who was our guy that was playing, the Northwestern kid?
Pat Spencer.
When you and I were together? Yeah, right. Like, when Spencer's out there playing, you kind of smell blood in the water. They wanted to give it to him. There's a history with this series. Steph Curry has ripped the hearts out of this Houston franchise for a while. So I think that they were kind of relishing in the ability to blow them out given the injuries. I think this sets up for a pretty nice bounce back at home. I'd be willing to lay the short number with the Warriors. Lean to the over, but the market's already accounted for that. So we'll see what happens. But I think you get a bounce back from Golden State tonight.
Put up a Pat Spencer prop, you cowards. Come on.
Right?
No Pat Spencer love. I mean, then my man was out there. Dude was playing lacrosse like 6 years ago at Loyola. Now he's balling in the NBA playoffs. All right, only 2 other games to get to. Do we even need to mention Oklahoma City, Memphis, or is this thing just cooked like a cake?
Yeah, I think we're done here. For the Grizzlies, we know that John Morant's doubtful to play, and if he's not going to be out there, and then Luke Kennard's questionable, I mean, I think we're all done. It is worth pointing out, though, look, we watched Miami push Cleveland to the brink and ultimately lose out on that game, but still, Miami has done a relatively solid job in this series, and you're coming back home, and you would expect that maybe that this is a team coached by Eric Spoelstra that is going to be able to make it pretty live here, if you will, and make Cleveland sweat just a little bit. Small lean toward the Cleveland Cavaliers because I think we're getting a small discount. You and I talked about that open, but nothing strong. I'll be looking to attack Cleveland in game if they get off to a slow start.
Money moves. He and Stormy Bonatoni starting on Monday, noon Eastern. JVT, always appreciate it, my friend.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
There he is, Jonathan Von Tobel, and you can see all his plays over at VSiN.com. And, with the NBA and NHL playoffs rolling along, of course, MLB in full swing, and the Derby next week, no better time to become a VSiN Pro subscriber for just $59 all the way through August 1st. You're saving 33% off the monthly price, and you get our Kentucky Derby betting guide, which is dropping later this week with previews and best bets on the Derby and the Kentucky Oaks. VSIN.com/subscribe. One Jonathan to another. Jonathan Davis talking NHL with us next.
You're tuned in to the VSiN Weekend Morning Line.
Keep it rolling here. We're at the midway point of the VSiN Weekend Morning Line. Thanks to JVT, as always, for jumping on, giving us his thoughts on the NBA card today. That starts at 1 o'clock Eastern, 4 games there. And then we get 4 games on the ice. It was a day of revenge across the NBA and NHL. All 3 teams on the ice that were 0-2. Got victories yesterday, and I was happy to see Edmonton get a win, as that was nice for me personally, as I took a little Edmonton on the money line. Didn't like to see my hometown Washington Capitals, though, get a L against the Montreal Canadiens. But let's head to our progressive guest line and welcome in Jonathan Davis, who's been doing a great job with us, handicapping the NHL all year long on VSiN.com. It's your time to shine here, Mr. Davis, as we've got the NHL playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, in full force. So 4 games tonight on the ice, and let's start with Tampa and Florida. Florida's gotten out to the 2-0 start. They're back at home now. They're around a minus 135 favorite, total of 5.5. The Sunshine State Showdown, Game 3. JD, who do you got here in this one?
Tim, I'm laying off both on both the side and the total of this one. I'm really surprised by the way Tampa's performance in Game 2, especially after losing Game 1. They looked like they were playing a game kind of like a Tuesday in November. It was, and credit Florida for smothering them. But so I'm still not. I'm going to lay off the side in the total. I'm looking at Sam Bennett over half a point in this one for the Florida Panthers. Bennett may play maybe the top line center tonight or this morning out west at least. As their number one center, Sasha Barkov, looks like he's questionable for tonight. So Bennett gets elevated. Love for him to get a point tonight at plus 110, plus 105. Definitely shop around on that one. So that's one target for the way I'm going to approach this game. And then on the Tampa side, I'll look to Jake Gensel, who loves playing against Sergei Bobrovsky. He's got 6 goals in 7 games against Bobrovsky. I'll take Gensel for an anytime goal in this one at about plus 190.
Jonathan Davis joining us here, courtesy of our Progressive Guest Line, our NHL betting analyst for VSiN. First game of the day, Tampa at Florida. Sam Bennett over a half a point and Jake Gensel an anytime goal for JD, with that one getting going at 1 o'clock Eastern time. The Vegas Golden Knights now down 2-1, so this is a massive spot for VGK here this afternoon. Puck drop at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific time up there in the Twin Cities. Vegas is a pretty juice favorite, sitting there at minus 150. And I think the anticipation, JD, is that there is going to be that bounce back, that desperation. Looking at your card for this game, a handful of props. So how are you looking to attack this afternoon showdown between the Wild and the Knights?
Well, I'll keep it simple for this, because if I give you everything on our segment here, we may not get done until about 5 o'clock. So I'll have everything posted up on the site in a little bit. But look, from the Minnesota side, I'm targeting props in this one. I'm staying away from sides and total. Vegas has had no answer for the Wild's top line of Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Boldy, and Joel Eriksson-Ek. So, I'll be targeting Kaprizov a goal, Boldy for a goal. They've got 8 of Minnesota's 12 goals this year, or in the playoffs right now. Each of them have 4. So I'll be targeting both of them to score a goal. Joel Eriksson-Ek, the center on that top line, doesn't have a goal, but he leads the series with 20 shots on goal. So I'll be targeting his over shots on goal prop today as well. On the Vegas side, Pavel Dorofeev, who led the Golden Knights in goals this year and shots, and leads them in shots in the playoffs, I'll be targeting Dorofeev today, laddering his props for shots on goal as well. So those are some of the angles that I'll have up on the column later today.
Yeah, make sure to check that out, by the way, if you're a VSiN Pro subscriber. You can check it out. Jonathan Davis doing his great work and getting those columns up on VSiN.com. So a handful of props there. Once again, Vegas sitting at around a minus 150 favorite. Speaking of that game, just a little programming note. An hour from now, Chuck Esposito on the show. We'll get the latest from behind the counter on what you would imagine, especially here in town, a pretty hefty backing of the Vegas Golden Knights. Does the sweep happen this evening north of the border? It felt like for a while, the Senators, they're going to get on the board with that Game 3, and then Toronto rips out their hearts there in overtime. So Toronto, a slight dog tonight against the Ottawa Senators. Puck drop at around 7 o'clock Eastern, north of the border, hockey night in Canada. Total sitting at 5.5. Ottawa and Toronto here this evening. How are we looking to attack this one from a prop standpoint?
Well, from a prop standpoint, look, I'm going to go back to on the Ottawa side, it's Claude Giroux of the Ottawa Senators. He's been a great playoff performer. He's got, I think it's 84 points in 95 playoff games. He's averaged over a point a game against Toronto Maple Leafs over his career. He leads the Senators in points in the playoffs. So I'll be targeting him at over half a point. You get that at plus money. Brady Tkachuk, goals in back-to-back games for the Ottawa Senators. Again, target Brady for a goal. Target also his over shots at over 4.5. He's had 5 the last 2 games. Love Brady Tkachuk on the Ottawa side. On the Toronto side, Mitch Marner of the Maple Leafs. He's got 6 points in the playoffs. He's got 5 assists. 5 to 6 points have been on the power play. Like Mitch Marner, again, for a power play point. Austin Matthews, he's got 16 goals in 17 games against Ottawa goalie Linus Ullmark. Love Matthews for an anytime goal. So those are a couple of props that I'll be targeting in this one tonight.
Now, I know you don't have a play on the side or total, but does your gut tell you that Ottawa forces a Game 5, or does this thing wrap up tonight there in Ottawa?
I I would actually play the draw on this one, Tim.
Okay.
I mean, the last 2 games have gone to overtime. There's not enough value to play Ottawa. They just shouldn't. I mean, I understand why they are a slight favorite, but if I would play anything, I think the value again is with the draw for a third time in this series.
In the Mile High City, we got Colorado taking on the Dallas Stars tonight, 9:30 Eastern puck drop there in Denver. And, we just talked to JVT regarding the Nuggets and the Clippers, that game going off later on this afternoon as well. Both Colorado teams down 2-1, but both very different. You look at the Denver Nuggets, I'll be honest, as JVT alluded to, JD, very fortunate to maybe even be down 2-1, if not for Russell Westbrook's corner 3 in game number 1. Or game number 2, I beg your pardon. And now you look at Colorado. And I have a series bet on Colorado to win this series. And I got it at a very good price. And now I'm frustrated because they've trailed for only 70 seconds and they're down 2-1. The price is expensive tonight. Does Colorado even this series up? And also, what are you looking at from a prop standpoint when it comes to Dallas and Colorado?
Yeah, no value to play Colorado tonight at this price. If you're going to play a side just strictly on the number, I would play the Dallas Stars. But again, for me, it's going back to the prop market. And one of my favorite props during the playoffs has been block shots. You see it a lot in the NBA, but here in hockey, it's not been as common. But Esa Lindell of the Dallas Stars has been a shot blocking machine. I would play him at over 2.5 block shots. And the same thing on the Colorado side for Devon Toews. He's had 11 block shots in the last 2 games, 4 and 7 respectively. I like his prop at over 2.5 and 3.5 block shots as well. And then Nathan MacKinnon, 20 shots on goal in the series. Play McKinnon over 4.5 shots. And if you want to get a little funky, you could even just make a smaller play on over 5.5 as well.
All right, before I let you run, Jonathan Davis, our NHL betting analyst, you'll have his column up on VSiN.com shortly. My Caps lose last night to the Montreal Canadiens. It was a physical night. We saw the Tom Wilson moment where he's mimicking crying there. So a lot going on, but you certainly get a little bit worried with Logan Thompson getting absolute obliterated late in that game. Should I be worried about my Caps up 2-1 against the Canadiens in this series?
Well, okay, so the counter would be is that, the Montreal Canadiens also may be without their starting goalie, Samuel Montembeault, who had to leave that game early with what appeared, with some type of lower body injury. So they're going to have their rookie, Jakub Dobeš, in net. And Dobeš is, I don't really think he's ready for primetime play, but I'm not a Lindgren fan as well. So I would tend to target overs in this game. By the way, if Dobeš is the starter, I tell people now, play Washington to score the first goal of the game. I think it's 13 of Dobeš's 15 games that he has started, the opposition has scored first. So that's something, little nugget there for you. I like Montreal in this series, Tim. They played really well. They could easily be up 2-1 as opposed to down 2-1. So, but with the goaltending situation, it does change everything right now. I got to wait and see what the status is with both goalies as we move forward.
His column will be up later today on all 4 playoff games and all the props that he does like. It's Jonathan Davis. JD, appreciate it, man.
Always a pleasure, Tim. Have a great rest of your day. Good luck.
At West Coast Hockey, HKY is where you can find him on Twitter. Hey, folks, just a reminder, if you want to bet smarter, not louder, check out the Sharp Plays at sharpplays.com, where real bettors go to get ahead. Sharp Plays is the source that you want to follow. Since 2011, they've been locked in on what the real pros are betting. Visit sharpplays.com. Respected, watched, and feared. Sharpplays.com. We'll get our favorite plays for today and beyond. We'll do that next. Stick around. It is the VSiN Weekend Morning Line.
You're tuned in to the VSiN Weekend Morning Line.
Yes, indeed. We keep it rolling here on a Saturday morning. It is the VSiN Weekend Morning Line. Just a reminder, we're with you every Saturday and Sunday, and this is just a great time of year as we get in the thick of it with the NHL and the NBA playoffs. JD, Jonathan Davis, giving us his plays. His column going to be up momentarily on all his plays. Likes a lot of prop angles heading into the 4 games today. JVT also on the program, running through his plays as well. And I'll reiterate those plays. There was some confusion out there in the social media world that JVT wasn't giving out any plays. I disagree. I listened. He had some plays there for you, so we will get to those as we get to our best bets. But just a reminder, top of the hour, we get going again with the NFL draft. On the clock, the Tennessee Titans. And the question we're all wondering, where will Cam Skattebo go? I know, that's the big question. Everyone is wondering where the Arizona State running back will go. I've got some buddies of mine who've got some Skattebo under 120 and a half, and they're sweating it out. Also, oh, yeah, that's right. Shedeur Sanders hasn't been drafted yet, so we'll see where he ultimately goes. We'll dive into that. I do want to jump into, at the top of the hour, when the draft restarts, some early looks at the offensive rookie of the year market, little defensive rookie of the year market, too. Travis Hunter is going to be fascinating from those two particular markets because right now we don't know how much he's going to play on defense. So he's probably pretty overvalued on the defensive rookie of the year market at this point. He's going to get bets. There is no doubt about that. But is it a silly bet to make? As for offensive rookie of the year, I think it's pretty intriguing when you think about offensive rookie of the year. Look, last year there was, and I hate the word value, there was value out there because of number 1, Caleb Williams. Number 2, there was value on Jaden Daniels. At one point in time, ladies and gentlemen, in August, you could have got, I think, as high as 8-1 on Jaden Daniels. I know it was 7 because that's what I was able to grab. So might not need to rush to bet any of these particular players now, considering it's April 26th. Ashton Jeanty, Cam Ward specifically, the 2 favorites. But I'm going to dive into those odds boards, and we'll talk about some of my favorite fits. We talked about some of my favorite hauls to this point, and then I'll just go isolated favorite players and spots here coming up at the top of the hour. But where will Shedeur Sanders go? Is there anything worth betting right now regarding the Shedeur Sanders market? Yesterday, I thought there was. I thought the Raiders were worth a play yesterday, and that thing got bet down from plus $5, I think maybe $4 down to odds on, and then started to creep back. So right now, as you see it on the screen, if you're watching with us on YouTube TV, Masson 2 or Nesson Plus there in New England, Pittsburgh plus 190 is the favorite. The Raiders at plus 350. And then it's just kind of I don't know. And at this point, I think that's what we have to do. Shoulder shrug, hands up emoji, like, I don't know. I thought it was worth a play pre-draft on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I can't get a refund on that ticket. So I'm waiting here. I guess the question I do have to ask, I should ask Chuck Esposito this. If Shedeur doesn't get drafted, which I'm not saying it's going to happen, I think he gets drafted today. Do I get a refund on my tickets? I guess that would be the case, right? If he does not get drafted, that would probably be a refund. Boy, that would be pretty stunning if that happened. I think he gets drafted. If I had to make a selection on where he goes, I'd still say Pittsburgh. Let's just look real quickly. Let's just look down the board. Pittsburgh plus 190. Raiders plus 350. Raiders have the 6th pick today. The Raiders situation gets a little more murky because what were they at 38 last night? They traded back, and I thought JVT made a good point. I don't know if he made it on Primetime or on Twitter, but he said the Raiders would be silly to take a backup quarterback in the 2nd round. And I agreed with that. But when they came to 98 and 99 with him still on the board, in my mind saying, all right, Tom Brady's involved here. He was picked 199. Maybe they make him pick 99. And then when they pass on him with both of those picks, I'm like, whoa, all right. Maybe the Raiders, who drafted a tackle out of William & Mary, who might end up being a contributor right away. We know. Quickly, just aside, I know I'm all over the place here. But what the Raiders have done so far, and I know there was a lot of people being like, Ashton Jeanty at 6, maybe too much of a reach for the Raiders, they have so many more glaring holes. But what I'll say about what the Raiders have done so far is that they're clearly making a statement of what they want to be from an identity purpose. So let's look at real quickly what the Raiders have done to this point. Ashton Genty, physical running back. He's going to be on the field nonstop. I think he's the rightful favorite to be Rookie of the Year. Trade back in round 2. They get John Besh, the wide receiver out of TCU, another physical guy. And then you get a corner in Darian Porter out of Iowa State and 2 offensive linemen with the 98th and 99th pick. They got the 6th pick today. They certainly could be the spot for Shedeur Sanders. And I think the question now, a lot of people have been contemplating with Shedeur being the 6th or, dare I say, 7th quarterback off the board, is he willing to accept the role as a backup? And that being said, too, there's a lot of, and and I'm not trying to defend it, but when you look at, what Tim Tebow brought to your franchise from a media eyeball standpoint, now that will dissipate, but there's going to be that in training camp. That's why I still think the Steelers make the most sense, but at plus 190 in a draft where it feels like a complete dart throw, I don't think at plus 190 I can recommend taking the Pittsburgh Steelers with the 123rd pick. I think that's where it is, but I'm not saying to bet it right now at plus 190 because at this point, who the heck knows, as so many teams have already passed on them a handful of times. Worth noting this for Pittsburgh. They've only passed on them twice, right? When you look at a team like Las Vegas, they've passed on them 5 times. Pittsburgh used the 1st-round pick on Derek Harmon and used the 3rd-round pick on Caleb Johnson, which I love that pick, the running back out of Iowa. They've only passed on him twice. So I think Pittsburgh, once again, makes the most sense. All right, let's get to our best bets for the day. And JVT, once again, has mentioned and gave out a couple of plays. 2 plays for JVT today. He likes the Clippers. He laid it at 5.5, I believe, in our contest there. And he also is in on the Warriors, despite the likelihood of Jimmy Butler being out. I mentioned Brandon Pajemski obviously being a little bit healthier as well. And one thing he did say, JVT mentioned, he said, if you like the Clippers, you can wait to see if Porter and Westbrook play and get the number back to the open. So he said it's 6.5 right now. Maybe you wait a little bit and see how it ultimately plays out. I can't recap all of Jonathan Davis's plays. He loves a lot of props today, and all those picks are going to be up over at VSiN.com. But, I've dipped my toe, I believe, twice into the hockey world, and I announced my retirement here on this program of hockey bets after we were able to get a great situational spot home with the Columbus Blue Jackets 2 Saturdays ago, and they won 7-0. I thought about going full Costanza and saying, I'm out, no more hockey bets. I went back in. I took the Flames late in the regular season against the Knights. All they had to do was overcome a 2-goal deficit in the 3rd period, win in a shootout. It was an easy winner for all of us, obviously. Gave that one out on VSiN Primetime, but I'm back, baby. I'm like Michael Jordan sending in the memo. I'm back. I'm betting hockey. The Avalanche are a minus 170 favorite tonight. At home, they've trailed by a total of 70 seconds in this series. I'm taking the Avs on the series price at plus 130 to come back and win this series against the Dallas Stars. So win it tonight, Colorado Avalanche, with an inflated price of minus $170. And we're going to go in series plus 130. Give me the Colorado Avalanche. I think they win tonight. I think they win this series. So DraftKings right now has plus 130. I'm back, baby. Betting hockey. Yeah, that's right. Colorado Avalanche to win the series at plus 130. Hey, just a reminder, our best bets always brought to you by our friends over at G-Bank. They're the official bank of VSiN. G-Bank's up in the ante with a $750 bonus for new G-Bank Visa Signature customers. First, new customers who spend $1,000 on eligible purchases within 90 days from account opening receive a $250 bonus. In addition, if you spend $50,000 on gaming and sports app loads within the 30 days of account opening, you'll receive another $500 bonus. That's potentially a $750 bonus right there. Apply now, vsin.com/gbank, vsin.com/gbank. Subject to credit approval, terms and conditions do apply. The NFL Draft, round 4 starts top of the hour. We'll look back at some of my favorite selections from the first 3 rounds. We'll do that next. It is the VSiN Weekend Morning Line.